The following is a conversation with Avery Akkineni, head of VaynerMedia APAC and managing director. Only a few individuals have made decisions that changed my life in big ways. I can say with no reservations, Avery did so by offering me a job at VaynerMedia. It's an agency started by Gary Vaynerchuck, who has millions of social media followers. Avery works closely with him on all things related to the APAC region. My working experiences with social media stars taught me that what you see and get is very different. Not many people know how it's like having Gary Vaynerchuk as a boss, so I hope that Avery can share a little bit about that. She is leaving VaynerMedia APAC and taking on a new role within VaynerX in the US, so I wanted to catch her before she leaves. This podcast will share her perspective on leadership, Gary, blockchain, and life principles. Please enjoy this conversation with Avery. The very first question I have for you, I know that you're a person who is extremely driven, fast-paced, and motivated. When you make up your mind to do something, it's not a matter of whether you'll do it or not, but when it will be done. So my question is, if you ever started a company, right, what would you do?
The most important thing when you're starting a company is get the right people around you and build the right team. So my belief is that culture really comes first when it comes to building the right company. So you have to get your company culture in order first and foremost. Then you have to do great work, and then you have to drive the business results. And I think about those in that specific order would build a successful company.
When it comes to starting your own company, is there any interest or in a distant reality at the back of your mind of things that you're passionate about, right? What kind of company would you want to start?
I would definitely want to start a brand. I love brand building, and that's something that's been really fun for me over my career, whether it's building like Google, the biggest brand in the world, or helping to build skincare brands or insurance brands or banks. Anything in the consumer packaged goods space has always been really fun for me because so much of that is driven on sort of the belief consumers have in a specific brand. So I would love to do something in the brand space, maybe a CPG one day. But for now, I'm very, very happy to be working under the VaynerX family, helping with our brand partners.
All right, got it. Moving on to the topic of leadership, right? I speak from a position of being an entry-level employee in VaynerMedia. Obviously, when I first joined the company, I didn't know anything about the world. So when it came to leadership, right, you are the leader of leaders. And over my time here at Vayner, I've eventually picked up some responsibility in terms of guiding others. So you are the leader of leaders in a sense whereby, is there any kind of leadership? What does being a leader mean to you? Were you always a leader? And is there any kind of leadership advice you would give to someone trying to develop that aspect? Because I do think that being a leader, it's quite important in a career.
Well, thank you, JJ. And I think you're a leader in a lot of ways as well. Over the past almost 2 years, it's been just an absolute pleasure to work with you and see you grow and develop in your career as a media professional, as a marketer, and as a leader. So for me, I think there's a big difference between being a leader and being a boss. A boss is the person who is holding you accountable, yes, but more sort of holding it over your head. More the stick versus a leader is more the carrot. So the way that I try to approach it with the team is ensure that everyone feels comfortable and has the right understanding that we're here for them, that we're all one team, that everybody makes little mistakes, but also there's greatness in everyone. Good ideas come from anywhere. And you've ended up helping us in a lot of different ways, JJ, whether it's video or whether it's helping us on social community management that are sort of beyond your job scope. And I've always been very impressed with the ideas that you bring to the table. So first and foremost, it's encouraging your team and guiding them and leading them from the front. I was very inspired by, this whole theory of leaders eat last and the idea that you shouldn't ever feel too good to do something. And I think, having worked with me very closely, there's nothing that I wouldn't do myself. Right. And then the ability to sort of get your hands dirty and really know the work has been very effective for me as a leader. But I think most importantly, it's guiding people by motivating them, engaging them, and inspiring them to achieve great things, because no one's able to do it on their own. And you have to get the team behind you if you're going to aim for greatness.
Got it. Thanks so much. I think one challenge that I face in general, not just in VaynerMedia, right, whether if it's being a leader, right, I've probably been brainwashed by what Gary says about taking accountability, taking full responsibility of what you can. If person working under you is not able to meet up to expectation, it's your responsibility. If the person is not behaving well, it's your responsibility. The difficulty that I have is finding that fine balance between how much responsibility you should take And I'm just curious to know, how do you balance with that?
Taking accountability is a great thing, and having ownership as well. But I think also aiming for excellence is also an important thing. So not letting the quality bar slip. Of course, you can be empathetic and you can be understanding, but at the end of the day, you're looking to accomplish a specific task, and holding other people to the same accountability also matters. So there's taking accountability when it's something within your own control, but also in a business context, everyone's looking to drive results, and everyone's looking to deliver upon the commitments that we've made to different client partners. And I think encouraging others to hold themselves accountable is one way to do it, but also really having the bar set high from a quality perspective. And in your manager, Catherine Long, she is really all about executional excellence, right? And yes, there's the accountability that she has, but it also kind of trickles down. And when you see your leader take accountability, that inspires you to do the same. And the position of leaders is to have that accountability, but also to hold others to it as well. And find that right balance, right? It's like, yes, you can always turn the other cheek and give people the benefit of the doubt, but there's also, when you have that empathetic foundation, you can also be firm with people, and you know that they have your best interests at heart.
All right. Got it. That's some useful tips that I can use definitely there. Another question about leadership, right? You seem like a radically confident leader, right? What things do you doubt yourself about?
That is very kind of you to say, JJ, and it's always a work in progress. I'm very, very, very far from perfect. I think I believe in what I can do, and I believe in what our team can do most importantly. And you've been along this journey, specifically at VaynerMedia and APAC, going from when we were in whatever it was, a 4-desk WeWork to now about 150 people. And you have to believe that anything is possible in order for it to be possible. So I've always, believed that there's always a solution. There's always a way to solve a problem. And I think when you believe that kind of thing, then you manifest it as well. So if you think, hey, I can do this. And, there were many times that we've had challenges, like, for example, during the pandemic, and I was racking my brain, what do I do? And I realized no one has all the answers. You have to go confidently. You have to try your best. And there's things that we don't do perfectly, and there's things I don't do perfectly. But even when you have a mistake, or you have something that doesn't go perfectly, you actually learn from it. And it builds that confidence. And then as you start to see those small wins compound, you continue to build your confidence that, hey, JJ Tam can do anything, which I truly believe.
On the topic of nature versus nurture, right? Where did this confidence of yours come from your experience? Were you always like that?
That is, it's a funny question. I think from a young age, I've always had a more confident nature, and I've always said that, I could do things. That is a little bit more nature. But I think also nurture, you're sort of forced into doing it when you're a leader, and there's no one to be confident besides yourself. You have to just take that and run it, and know that if you don't try, then it's never going to be possible. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So I think part of that is, I would say 60% is just innately within me. I've always been wanting to try something and just see if I can do it. And then also the kind of force of nature in the environment that I've been in most recently.
All right, I feel pumped right now. Okay, moving on to the next section, right? I know by now you're sick of people asking you about Gary Vaynerchuk. I only have one question on this, right? I think in my first 5 or 7 months here in VaynerMedia, we actually had a call with Gary, and I asked the question, right? What did he like about you being the head of VaynerMedia APAC? And he had shared praises which I never thought were possible. They were so high. And in those conversations, he shared that he actually had very candorous conversations with you on how to make you happy as a person and professionally. In my opinion, I think it says a lot about him in general, although my general experiences of working with influencers have been not that great. So obviously you are a person that has worked a lot with him, right? And for the fact that he made an attempt to want to make you happy professionally and as a person speaks a lot about it. But could you share more from your perspective, right? How are those conversations like? And how did Gary make you happy as a person and professionally?
Yeah, thank you for remembering that, JJ. Working with Gary is incredible because he's a visionary. He is an incredible business person. He's an incredible leader. He's an incredible influencer, and he inspires and engages so many different people across the globe. It's amazing how many people have come up to me and told me that Gary changed their lives. It is truly amazing. And, he's changed my life as well in the professional context, but also personal. Talk about confidence. Gary has always believed in me and given me the benefit of the doubt, let me try new things, even when I maybe didn't look like I was ready on paper. he had that belief in me, and I'm very grateful for that. And, it goes a bit beyond professional to even, as he mentioned, ask me like, what is my game plan? What do I want to do? Where do I want to be based? Like, what experiences do I want to have? What's important to me? And then, sort of orchestrated those roles for me, which is certainly something that you don't get every day. And I'm very grateful to him. And I think it's also worked out quite well for him since I've been able to deliver business impact, which has worked out well on both sides.
I believe you first met Gary at a Google event, right? So could you maybe just share a before and after impressions working with Gary Vaynerchuk? Obviously, we on social media, you may get the perception that he's a very hyped up person, but from my experience of just briefly meeting him in New York, right, he seems to be a very calm person. Just wanted to know from your experience, what was your before and after impressions of him?
Yeah. So when I first saw Gary giving a presentation, I was super inspired, and just, he has such a presence and he has so much energy that you can't help but realize, wow, this guy is up to something different. And I think I thought about him first as a marketer, and his belief in social media was my first impression of Gary. And then from there, I got to know him as a leader, a business person, and a boss, which I realized he has a much softer side than what you see on social media. So yes, you get all of that energy from him, but you also see the softer side of him. And JJ, I know you actually also experienced meeting with Gary in real life. So I'm curious what you thought versus your impression from digital.
I think I was brainwashed by the fact that he's a very rah-rah and energetic person. But yeah, meeting in him just for a brief moment of time, I'm not sure if he was sick that day, but he was very quiet that day. Yeah. All right, last question about Gary. How would you rate Gary for being your boss, and why?
I would say Gary is 11 out of 10 for being my boss. We work really well together, and he's given me opportunities that have been nothing short of incredible. And I trust him as a partner. And, I'm starting this new venture with Gary, and we were debating between a couple of things, and I decided to take the path less traveled, and instead of the one that was a little bit more steady and stable. And the reason I decided that is I was like, what do you think is the right move, Gary? Because I trust you. Like, where do you think I'm going to be able to help you the most? And he said this, sort of newer thing. And I said, okay, let's go for it then.
Wow. Okay, got it. Moving on to the next section about blockchain and crypto. I know it's a very far off tangent topic, but just a very general sense. I know that Gary has been doing a lot of things related to the crypto side of things, right? Just your general opinion, what does blockchain and crypto mean to you, and are you excited by it?
Yeah, I'm very excited by it. I think that there is a tremendous potential in the cryptocurrency space and in the blockchain space. I think that it's almost it's opening up these possibilities for NFTs and Web 3.0 and the metaverse. That's almost like a whole new internet. And I'm actually sort of positioning my career as a little bit more aligned to that going forward, just so that we can try to figure out how to make that work for our brand partners and sort of people of influence that we work with. So I think it's a whole new dawn of a new day for a technology revolution, and I'm excited to be in the thick of it.
All right, got it. Thanks so much. Okay, moving on to the last section about life principles, very general questions, right? If you're a parent, what are the top 3 values would you want your children to learn from you?
Accountability, kindness, and hard work.
What were the secondary things were you thinking about?
I was also thinking about empathy. I think that matters, and fun, because at the end of the day, you have to have fun in life, and just the being the kind of person who has fun and makes light of situations and enjoys life, I think is really important to me as a person. JJ, we've had, even though we work hard, we also do a lot of fun things, a lot of like lunches, a lot of team stuff, a lot of silly stuff, a lot of birthdays. I think, life is short, and celebrate the small moments and wins. That makes me at least have more fun and enjoy my day more. So I hope if we have kids, that's something that I'll pass down to them.
All right, got it. Okay, moving on to a very heavy question, a not so fun question. In your own words, what's the meaning of life?
To make the world a better place. To make it better than it was when you came in. I always try to leave a situation better than when I came in, and touch the world in my own small little way. I'm just one person with very limited impact, but I like to try to make everything a little bit better than before I came in past it.
Not limited at all. Definitely not limited at all at scale. Moving on, best advice you have ever received.
Just do it, just try. I think that's a Garyism, but it's also something that, my parents also always encouraged me to do, is to try. And I think it, to your earlier point, built that confidence, because they would always encourage me to just go for it, just try it. Like, don't be afraid of failure. And I think it ended up building an important skill set in me.
The worst advice you have ever received?
I used to get a lot of feedback earlier in my career that I was very assertive to the point of being aggressive. And people would say, you need to tone that back. That's not you're a woman in business. It's not a nice way to communicate. Like, as you're too strong, you have too strong of a personality. And I heard this a lot in my early career. And I think it was bad advice, because ultimately those things that, they perceived as a weakness have been a strength for me. And I think once I realized to embrace who I am, quirks and all, not being perfect, that ultimately led to a much more like harmonious balance and in relationship with myself, right? If you're always trying to stifle something and always hearing you're too much, too strong opinions, too strong-willed, too assertive, it's not the nicest feeling. And I think a lot of women in business get that same kind of a feedback until you realize actually that's what's going to make you stand out from everyone else. And you should embrace yourself and how you are as a person. Of course, while being nice and while being polite and while finding the right ways to collaborate with others.
Was this a gradual process, or was it the help from mentors that you had, great bosses that you had, that made you have this change in perspective?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a result of good bosses. I remember one of my first good bosses when I was at Google. I had heard this feedback about like having too strong of a personality before. And he told me, don't worry, Avery, one day you're going to be my boss. And I remember at the time I was like 22 years old or 23 or something. And I thought it was a ridiculous thing for him to say.
Wow.
But he was reading off the feedback from some people and he was like, just be yourself. This is who you are. And don't worry, Avery, one day you'll be my boss. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. But then later I reflected that he saw leadership qualities in me coming from that strong personality that some people didn't like, but he saw like greatness within and encouraged me to lean into my sort of natural personality traits. And I think that, everyone should bring their best self to work and bring who they really are to work, instead of trying to retrofit themselves into some stereotype or some perception of how other people want you to behave.
I think it's very, very lucky that you had a boss like that. I'm very lucky to have a boss like that with Alvin and Catherine. They're obviously very, very supportive, right? I know it's probably a difficult question, but is there anyone, let's say as an entry-level position or a young graduate finding a job, right? Is there any tips you could give in finding that good boss? Because I think who we work with on a daily basis matters a lot. So is there any kind of tips that you could give to really find that good boss?
Yeah, when you're interviewing for a job, remember that it's an interview both ways. So this should mean like you're assessing the potential employers just like they're assessing you. So really get a sense of who is your boss, what motivates them, what drives them, what do they stand for, and get to know them a little bit as people. Because when you're interviewing a company, yes, they're considering you and your qualifications, but you're also considering them and their company culture and what they stand for as an organization. And I think that's super important that it goes both ways.
All right. Thank you so much, Avery. The very last question. I asked this question to Gary when I was in New York, and I'm going to ask it to you. In 1 year's time, what tangible events would you want to happen to make it the best year for your life professionally and as a person, in the words of Gary Vaynerchuk?
In 1 year, I would like to have my next sort of venture successfully up and running and the team built. I would like for it to be the best, financially lucrative company that we've ever launched as VaynerX. And I would like, on a personal level, to be reunited with my husband and my dog and all settled into our new place in this new chapter since we're moving to Miami, Florida on Thursday.
All right, this Thursday. When's your flight?
6 a.m. Are you going to come see me off at the airport today?
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Very, very last question. Is there any feedback that you have from me, knowing for briefly working? I know I didn't get a chance to closely work with you, but just in a very generous sense, any feedback that you have for me moving forward?
JJ, you are an incredible talent. You're a really smart guy. You're a delight to work with. I have just been so impressed with what you brought to the table, not just from an analytical perspective or media planning perspective, but also from a culture perspective. I see that you're able to bring forward a lot of the Vayner culture, and you're one of the OGs for a reason. So I know that you are moving on to your next adventure, but I want you to know that you always have a role at Vayner. And you'll always have a role with me on my team because I think you are such a talent. And I don't know if we're still on the podcast, but if there's anything that might sway your mind or things changes you wanted to see within Vayner, I would be more than happy to discuss them with you because I think that you have super high potential and your future is very bright for growth. You need to be a little bit better of a communicator, JJ. So you are a soldier, so you don't like to complain about things till it's a boiling point. But I think the good way is you can communicate a little bit more often and openly. And then I think you can mitigate challenges before they become problems.
All right. Thanks so much, Avery. I needed to hear that. I just wanted to say on a very last note, Avery, for your decision to give me a job at VaynerMedia. And for that, I'm really forever appreciative and grateful for the fact. And you have definitely made a big dent into my life onto what is up for the next few years. But I just really want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you, JJ. And I meant what I said. So hit me up if you want to talk tomorrow or anything or at any point, just since if there's anything that we could have a conversation about, I think you're just so awesome and have so much potential, whether it's media analyst or something else. You have a very, very bright future, JJ, and you've been an incredible part of Vayner. And I hope our paths cross again soon.
Yes, I hope it definitely will. And yes, thanks you so much. The podcast recording will end now.